guys, my name is Gracie, and for our Stat 220 project, we decided to study the different variables that affect the outcome of food inspections in the Chicago area. And after some exploration of the data set, we knew that we wanted to study all of the variables that affected whether or not a business would pass their inspection. So in other words, we decided to figure out what makes a restaurant more likely to pass a food inspection and also some of the things that makes it more likely to fail. So in order to do this, we have to, of course, do some data cleaning.
Okay, so we started our data cleaning by removing the variables that weren't useful for our research purposes. So the ones that we decided to remove were these ones, and then the ones that we decided to keep were these ones. So another thing that needed fixing was that our data set was way too big. In order to narrow down our data set, we wanted to narrow down the amount of data we explored, so we chose to only look at businesses that were categorized as grocery stores. We did this because grocery stores are a fairly standardized business, so a majority of the data that we are analyzing would not have a lot of outside discrepancies that are affecting our outcomes. So another important data cleaning action that we took was turning the results variable into a numeric variable instead of a character variable. This way we were able to make different graphs and models regarding the results of the food inspections. To do this, we used a mutate function, and we made the least desirable outcome, which was going out of business, a 0, and we made the most desirable outcome, which would be passing without any conditions, a 3.
Okay, so yeah, now let's get into what we've actually discovered from our data. So we wanted to study what had the greatest impact on the results from our food inspection. So we were just kind of questioning, are certain grocery stores predisposed to failing an inspection? And so we decided to see if location played an important role in this. And so here we have a graph representing the map of Chicago. So as you can see from the graph, the darker areas represent where grocery stores are that failed their inspections. So that's where most of them are concentrated. And from what we can tell by looking at this, if you're looking at the graph, we could argue that the southern and more downtown areas of Chicago have lower passing rates. But if you're also looking at this, it's kind of fairly a random distribution. So we can't tell anything for sure. That's just kind of how it appears at the moment.
In order to draw a full conclusion, we decided to use a linear model for our data set. So here's a picture of a linear model in which we use the results and latitude as our two variables. So the results from the linear model suggested that there is a positive correlation between latitude and results from our data set. However, upon further inspection, when we used a correlation test, we found that the correlation between the two variables is actually 0.0576, or we rounded up to 0.06, which indicates that although there is a slight trend between the two variables, there's not a strong enough trend to draw any significant conclusions from.
So another important variable we looked at was the risk of the grocery store. The businesses were categorized into low, medium, and high risks. Low-risk businesses were businesses like a bakery that had little risk and handled items with little risk of becoming unfit for consumption. And a high-risk business example would be a grocery store that sells raw sushi, for example. However, if a restaurant has failed many inspections in the past, its risk may be increased. This is partly why we chose to study grocery stores, because the produce is fairly standard and the risk is more of an indication of past performance than it is of the produce that they actually carry.
So we performed a linear model of the risk and the results of different grocery stores and found that higher risk businesses had higher coefficients. So this is actually kind of surprising, and this indicates that the higher risk grocery stores were actually more likely to pass their inspections without any conditions. So it kind of just means that high risk grocery stores, they know how to pass inspections even though that they're higher risk. So this can actually be a little bit confusing at first until we look deeper into the information about high-risk restaurants. So according to the DC Department of Health, if a restaurant is at high risk, it's actually inspected a lot more frequently. So because of this, that means that the businesses are more accustomed to inspections and know what to inspect just because they're getting inspected so often. So this information is actually supported by a CART tree that we have here. So a medium or low risk restaurant's average result is a 2. So that's a pass with conditions is how we coded it. And a higher risk restaurant is considerably higher at a 2.3. So yeah, does this mean that higher risk grocery stores have an unfair advantage because they seem to understand the system better? Well, we can't actually say for sure, but it is a little bit surprising. However, we do know that from our data cleaning and exploration, the data does seem to support that they are more likely to pass than lower risk grocery stores, and that's something that may seem a little bit counterintuitive, but that's what the data supports.
So why do some grocery stores pass inspections while others don't? Well, originally we suspected that location would play a bigger role, but upon conducting further research, we found that risk was actually one of the most important factors in whether or not a grocery store passes its test. The true question is, are inspection methods providing certain businesses with tricks to cheat the system, or are they enforcing proper habits among otherwise risky restaurants? We don't know the answer fully, but we can say this. If you're looking to buy some groceries, perhaps consider ones that handle risky foods, because according to our data, they have a higher passing rates than their competitors. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope you enjoyed it.